G'day guys, welcome back to the Devon Too Good Investing channel. In this video today, we're going to be discussing why Seritage Growth Properties stock went up over 80% in one day. So let's not muck around, let's get straight into it. So why did it go up 80% in one day? Well, back in March of 2022, Seritage Growth Properties management team released a statement announcing that the company would review strategic alternatives to enhance shareholder value. So what did they mean by strategic alternatives? Well, we found out on the 7th of July, SRG announced that they want to liquidate all of the company's assets through either a single buyout or merger, or that they are looking to sell groups of the properties as well as properties on an individual basis. So essentially, no matter what way you cut it, SRG are looking to liquidate the whole company and return those proceeds to shareholders. So if you're like me and believe that the assets are worth considerably more than the share price, this should come as great news. So what needs to happen? So what happens next? Well, the first thing that needs to happen is that the proposal to liquidate the company will need to pass a shareholder vote where 2/3 of the vote need to pass the proposal. And at the moment, it looks quite likely that this will end up being passed, as Eddie Lampert, who owns 29.1% of SRG, he converted his operating partnership interest into Class A shares and also signed an agreement to vote yes, that he wants the proposal to go through. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. And this proposal is going to happen during the annual shareholder meeting, which should happen very soon. I don't think they've announced a date yet. However, the sooner they get this, have this annual meeting, the sooner they can get the vote done, and the sooner they can start executing their plan. So once this is passed, as long as it gets passed, the first thing that they'll need to do is they'll need to pay back the $1.44 billion of Berkshire debt. Obviously, the longer this debt accrues for, they're going to have to pay more and more interest on it, and that's going to be a cost. The next thing they'll need to do is pay out the Series A preferred shares. So there's about 70 million of those. So those guys have first dibs before, obviously, the people holding the Class A common shares. Before they get paid out, these Series A preferred shareholders, they will get paid dividends on the preferred shares. So the sooner we can get rid of these preferred shares, the sooner we'll not have to pay dividends. And then we'll also have to pay fees and expenses related to asset sales, which is fairly normal with any real estate transaction. And obviously, we're going to have to pay the ongoing operational and wind down costs. So that's going to slowly eat away at what we get. And then pay CapEx for property prior to disposition. So essentially, we need the vote to go through. We need to pay back the debt. We need to pay back the preferred share, Series A's preferred shares. And then these last four things, well, we'll have to pay them over time. However, it depends on how long it takes to get rid of the preferred shares, get rid of the debt, and sell each asset. As obviously, the longer it takes, the more there will be paid in terms of interest and ongoing expenses. So, when will we be paid and how much will we be paid? So, in the proxy statement, the estimated shareholder distribution range will be between $18.50 and $29 per share. These aren't my numbers, these are management's numbers. These were the numbers that they put on their proxy statement as part of their plan. And it is estimated that such sales may be completed within 18 to 30 months after the plan of sale is approved. So essentially, they think it's going to take between 1.5 years and 2.5 years to liquidate all their properties. And obviously, the speed of which they can liquidate the properties will help determine what kind of return we get, because if they take longer to do it, then they're going to have to pay those overhead costs for longer. However, if they get it done quickly, it should be a greater return to us not only in terms of the distributions, but in terms of the time value of money. So let's talk about some of the risks. Well, there's a chance that the vote is rejected. I do deem this to be a fairly low chance, although it's definitely possible. I think in general, the Seritage Growth Properties shareholder base will be in favor of this vote, as the redevelopment of the properties has been extremely slow. It's been well below the speed that I think most people anticipated. So I think the best way to get shareholder value out of this in a reasonable time is to liquidate the assets, as I think almost everyone who's invested in the company does believe that their assets are worth significantly more than the debt, significantly more than the preferred shares, and once you pay all that back, there should be plenty left over for shareholders. There's also a chance that the Sears litigation could delay payment of distribution, and this would lead to more cash burn, as the company will have to continue paying operating costs. They'll still have to pay Class A dividends. There still might be a debt at the company where they have to pay interest for. And also there's a chance that there's a payout awarded to Sears, which obviously would affect the amount of money left over for us shareholders. And it would also affect how long it takes for that money to get to us, because if they're in the middle of a litigation, they might be limited on their ability to pay out the shareholders. And then obviously the distribution size and timeliness is not guaranteed. You got to keep in mind that Seritage has over 160 properties in their portfolio. That's a lot of properties to sell, and all these properties have different levels of quality. Some of these properties are undeveloped, and some of these properties are still under construction. These properties will probably be harder to sell, whereas some of their higher quality properties should be a bit easier to sell. And obviously there is a real estate market risk with higher interest rates, with the possibility of a recession. It is quite possible that we don't get as much for the properties as expected. So if we go into the potential ROI, the current stock price is $10.96 per share. And if we use the high end of their estimate, or their time estimate for liquidation of 2.5 years, and we use the low end of their distribution value of $18.50 per share. So we're being conservative here. We're taking their high end time estimate and their low end distribution value. If you were to purchase the shares at today's price, that would give you a CAGR of 23.29%. However, this assumes that everything works out and they are within their range, albeit on the higher end of their time range and the lower end of their distribution value range. And if you were after a 26% CAGR, this would imply you wanting to buy the shares at $10.38. And obviously it depends on the risks. If these risks end up playing out here, you might likely not get as much as a return. So in turn, you would want to buy Seritage shares at an even lower price, or potentially not buy them at all if you think these are going to result in a lot of cash burn where shareholders don't end up getting paid out. But you've also got to keep in mind that instead of the $18.50, what if it's closer to this $29 per share? Or what if instead of 30 months it happens closer to 18 months? Well, you're going to get a larger return than what I showed on the previous slide. So you've got to pretty much weigh up the risks. You got to see what's worth it. You got to see, and also you got to think about how much you weight this within your portfolio. So guys, I hope this video provided value. Make sure you like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.